Good morning, everyone. Today is Thursday, the 12th of February, 2026. I've entitled this devotional this morning, They Didn't Like What Jesus Said. They didn't like what Jesus said. It's been my experience the last 30 plus years that there's a lot of people that don't like what Jesus says. Matthew 22:15. Then went the Pharisees and took counsel how they might entangle him in his talk. When Jesus addressed the Pharisees, they got very upset, didn't they? And John 7:48, have any of the rulers or of the Pharisees believed on him? Well, the Pharisees therefore said unto him, John 8:13, thou bearest record of thyself, thy record is not true. Luke 7:30, but the Pharisees and lawyers rejected the counsel of God against themselves, being not baptized of him. Luke 16:14, and the Pharisees also, who were covetous, heard all these things, and they derided him. Well, Christ said a lot of things that went against the lawyers, the Sadducees, the Pharisees, and the lead counselors in the church. You know, and Christ rebuked the Pharisees. He told the Pharisees, you're from beneath, I'm from above. You're of your father the devil, and the works of the devil you will do. They didn't like what Jesus had to say. There's a lot of people today that don't like what Jesus has to say. You know, they didn't like Jesus, and they didn't like his disciples either. Luke 5:30, the scribes and Pharisees murmured against his disciples. Well, there's a lot of people that don't like Christ's true followers either, do they? They attack his people. They malign his people. They come against his people. You know. Matthew 16:6, then Jesus said unto them, take heed and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees. Well, that still applies today, doesn't it? There's plenty of Pharisees and Sadducees out there today. Sadducees deny the resurrection of Christ. There are many that deny the resurrection of Christ and say that he just swooned. There are many that are upholding the leaven of the Pharisees, which is teaching law service, teaching that you're saved through keeping the law. No man can be saved by keeping the law. That's why Jesus came and died. He fulfilled the law. Jesus told them the way it was when he said, woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for ye shut up the kingdom of heaven against men, for ye neither go in yourselves, neither suffer ye them that are entering to go in. One of the biggest things that Jesus taught that the Pharisees hated was a man of himself is nothing. In other words, he was coming against the lie of free will. Jesus taught that men were born and conceived in sin. He taught that man can do nothing of himself to save himself. He says a man must be born again. They didn't want to hear that either. He also taught that you did not choose me, for I chose you. He also said no man can come unto me unless he's drawn of God. He also taught that all that the Father has given him will come to him. He also taught the doctrine of election and predestination. Pharisees didn't want to hear that. They wanted to think they were in control. They didn't want any part of the truth. And people today don't want any part of the truth. Good morning, Rashid Iqbal from Pakistan. We will keep you in our prayers. Glad to see that you're with us this morning. Most people don't want to hear what Jesus has to say. They want to make up their own philosophy as they go along in life. They don't care about the truth. They care about hearing smooth things. The Bible says that they want their ears tickled and they're turned unto fables. Jesus said that those who are of a repentant spirit are the ones that are justified before God, not those in long robes and that are broadening their phylacteries. No. Many people desire the praise of men rather than the praise of God. They're more interested in being accepted of men than they are being accepted of the Lord. There's something wrong with that picture. You know, looking for the praise of men, looking for the high seats in the synagogues. You know, Matthew 23:25, Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you make clean the outside of the cup and of the platter, but within they are full of extortion and excess. Matthew 5:20, For I say unto you that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, ye shall in no case enter the kingdom of heaven. Well, this morning, let us be careful to hear what Jesus had to say. The scribes and Pharisees and hypocrites didn't want to hear what Jesus had to say. They didn't want to hear it, did they? And there's a lot of people. I'll tell you one test that you can use to discern whether people believe the Bible or not. Take them to the 9th chapter of Romans, where it says, the children not being born, not having done any good or evil, that the purpose of God according to election might stand. Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated. Hath not the potter power over the clay of the same lump to make one unto honor and one unto dishonor? Take them to that passage and see if they try to change it. 80 to 90% of the people will try to change what that passage says and try to make it say something else. You know. Well, may the good Lord be with you this morning is my prayer. God bless.